Imagine a bustling fish market in Edinburgh, 1580, where the air is thick with the smell of salt and seaweed, and merchants shout their prices over the screech of seagulls. It's a Tuesday morning, just another day in this vibrant chaos, until the crowd pauses, their eyes drawn to a woman standing in the center of the square. Her name is Margaret, and her head is locked in a device so cruel, so precise, it was designed for one purpose: to silence her. This is the Scold's Bridle, a medieval torture tool crafted exclusively for women who dare to speak too freely, too loudly, or too truthfully. At exactly 9:47 a.m., as church bells toll in the distance, iron teeth puncture Margaret's tongue, and blood pools behind the metal bit, dripping onto the cobblestones below. The leather straps creak as they're tightened against her jaw, and the market carries on, just 20 feet away, as if this is business as usual. Welcome to WTF History, the channel where we dive into the darkest, most shocking corners of the past to uncover stories that'll make you question humanity's creativity and its cruelty. Today, we're not just talking about torture. We're talking about a system so insidious, so meticulously engineered, that it turned women's own bodies into prisons, all because they dared to speak, to know, or to love in ways that threatened the powers of their time. The Scold's Bridle locked around Margaret's head isn't just a tool of punishment. It's a symbol of a worldview that saw women's voices as dangerous, their knowledge as a crime, and their bodies as something to be controlled. For the next 3 months, every attempt Margaret makes to speak will be agony. Every swallow will be torture. The crowd watching knows her crime, disturbing the peace. But what they don't know, what they'll only learn when the bridle is removed, is that her offense was correcting a priest's Latin in church. Can you believe it? In a world where men debated theology and waged wars, a woman's attempt to fix a translation error landed her in a device that would reshape her mouth, her life, and her family's future. The morning sun casts shadows through the iron framework of the bridle across Margaret's face, and her husband stands among the onlookers, eyes fixed on the ground. He's not here by choice. The law requires his presence. Watching your wife's bridling is a civic duty, a public reminder of what happens when women forget their place. Children peer from behind their mother's skirts, learning early that speaking out has consequences, especially if you're a woman. The fishmonger at the stall next to Margaret's looks away as blood drips onto the cobblestones. This isn't his first time witnessing this. It's the 16th. Bridling in Edinburgh this year. The city's metalworkers have turned this into an art form, designing the bridle with chilling precision. Not tight enough to kill, not loose enough to let her speak. Clearly, it's meant to teach a lesson through seasons of silence, to carve a warning into the faces of every woman watching. Margaret's eyes find her daughter in the crowd, a 12-year-old girl old, enough to understand the message being etched into her mother's flesh. Knowledge is dangerous when it comes from a woman's lips. So how do we get here? How did a religion that began with stories of love and redemption produce iron instruments to punish women for their words? To understand Margaret's bleeding tongue, we have to rewind through centuries of history, through theological debates, and monastery workshops where men turned scripture into suffering with mathematical precision. The Scold's Bridle wasn't born in a vacuum. It was the product of a long, deliberate process that started with words on parchment and ended with blood on cobblestones. The journey from Paradise Lost to Edinburgh's marketplace is a twisted one, and it reveals humanity's darkest creativity, the industrialization of gender punishment. Let's step back to 1387, to a cold November night in the monastery of Sandon. The wind howls outside, rattling the stone walls, but inside, a young priest named Brother Thomas is hunched over his desk, his breath visible in the flickering candlelight. His quill scratches across parchment, copying ancient texts that will shape the world. For centuries, the words aren't his. They come from Tertullian, a church father from the 2nd century who declared that women are the devil's gateway, the source of humanity's fall. Thomas doesn't question these words. Their divine truth, memorized during his years as a novice. As he transcribes, he adds his own notes in the margins, connecting these ancient ideas to his world. Women, he writes, must be corrected to preserve God's order. It's not cruelty, it's necessity. It's holy. Across the room, another monk, Prior Gum, is working on something even more. Questioning a priest's interpretation of Scripture, showing any knowledge beyond cooking or sewing. His pen pauses as he writes a particularly damning passage. The desire for knowledge is the first sign of corruption. If a woman dares to correct a man's understanding or interpret Scripture herself, she's not just wrong. She's dangerous, reenacting Eve's original sin. The monastery's library is. Physical correction is necessary. Prior Gum's manual takes this further, including detailed specifications for devices to enforce this correction. He's not an engineer, but he's studied enough anatomy to know how to cause pain without killing. The devices must be precise, he writes, targeting female anatomy specifically. They should cause suffering without permanent damage. Ensure silence without stopping breath. Remind women of their inherited guilt with every movement. His sketches show hinged metal frames, adjustable leather straps, pressure points mapped out on, diagrams of women's faces and bodies. This isn't cruelty for cruelty's sake. It's theological engineering, making God's will manifest in iron and leather. These monks aren't working in isolation. Across Europe, other monasteries are doing similar work. In Prague, monks translate Greek texts about female hysteria, claiming women's emotions make them unstable. In Cologne, theologians debate the spiritual benefits of enforced silence, arguing a quiet woman is closer to God. In Rome, church lawyers draft legal frameworks that make correcting women a husband's religious duty. These texts are shared, carried by pilgrims to universities and courts. Judges will cite them in sentencing. Husbands will reference them when requesting punishment devices. Craftsmen will study the anatomical drawings when forging their implements. The transformation from Scripture to suffering is underway, and it's terrifyingly efficient. As Brother Thomas finishes his copying at dawn, his final notation ties it all together. Women who speak in church, question male authority, or show learning beyond their station aren't just breaking social rules. They're committing theological crimes, challenging the order God established in Eden. His manuscript will be sent to Paris within the month, carried by pilgrims to universities and noble courts. From there, copies will spread, smell of hot metal and fear. Church bells ring out the 7th hour, and a crowd gathers, not out of bloodlust, but because attending public punishments is a civic duty mandated by city ordinance. On a raised platform, Anna Papenheimer waits, hands bound, eyes fixed on the horizon. She's accused of witchcraft, not for dancing with demons, but for healing children with herb mixtures, success, where university-trained physicians failed. That's enough to mark her as dangerous, a woman who knows too much. Her punishment will be carried out with a device so horrific it's hard to comprehend. The breast ripper, 4 glowing iron claws designed to tear apart the symbol of her motherhood. The crowd forms a semicircle, faces a mix of curiosity, fear, and grim acceptance. Mothers instinctively cover their chests. Fathers pay for front row spots, and children, required by law to watch, stand in a designated family area, learning what happens when women step outside their roles. Anna's eldest daughter, Maria, 16, stares at her mother's face. Knowing the herbs she learned at Anna's knee are now dangerous knowledge. The executioner, Hans, lifts the breast ripper from A. Brazier, the claws glowing cherry red. He sharpened them, tested the hinged mechanism for mechanical precision. The crowd's collective gasp is audible as metal clangs against metal. A sound heavy with what's coming. Anna's crime was healing. She nursed 6 children and countless others, using knowledge passed down through generations. But a neighbor swore she saw Anna collecting. Herbs by moonlight, another claimed her cat spoke in human voices, and that was enough for a 3-day trial with a predetermined verdict. The breast ripper is reserved for women who've corrupted their maternal role, turning nurturing into something suspicious. Hans, with 15 years of experience, knows how much the human body can endure. The city council has planned this punishment too. Last exactly 1 hour. Too quick, and the lesson is lost. Too long, and Anna might die before justice is complete. The priest reads Anna's crimes in Latin, his voice mixing with the hiss of hot iron. Meeting morning air. But Hans isn't done preparing. The breast ripper is just the first of 3 devices scheduled today. An iron chair with protruding spikes waits, already heated, and a head crusher sits in its wooden frame, screws oiled for smooth operation. The council has planned this with military precision, each stage maximizing suffering while reinforcing the message. Women who step outside their roles pay in blood and flesh. Artists sketch the scene for broadsheets. The city chronicler takes notes, and vendors sell bread and ale as if it's a market day. This isn't barbarism. They tell themselves it's civilization enforcing its boundaries. Anna's punishment isn't just about her. It's a spectacle to educate everyone, men, women, children. The breast ripper targets the part of her body that defines her role, turning nurturing into agony. Fathers bring daughters to learn the cost of healing without permission. Mothers teach sons that. Authority looks like this: a woman's body broken to preserve order. Maria, Anna's daughter, knows her future could look like this if she's not careful. But this isn't just one woman or one device. The breast ripper is the product of centuries of work, from monks like Prior Gum, whose manual specified punishments like this, to craftsmen who forge the claws to fit perfectly. This is engineering, not madness, and it's happening across Europe. Venice, Cologne, everywhere the machinery of gender punishment hums along. Let's sail to Venice, 1575, where the air is heavy with salt and secrets, and the canals reflect torchlight from a hidden chamber beneath the palace of the Doges. This isn't the Venice of gondolas. This is a place of shadows, where the most horrific punishments are carried out in secret. Caterina Visani stands before her accusers, her crime loving another woman, Margherita Del Nero, in a world that sees such love as a perversion. The device prepared for her is the pear of anguish, a metal bulb no larger than a child's fist, but with a mechanism so diabolical it's hard to believe human hands crafted it. The magistrates pass, the pair between themselves, admiring its craftsmanship like fine art. Venetian metalworkers turn base materials into beauty, and this device is no exception. When closed, it's a sleek polished bulb, etched with flowering vines that catch the torchlight. But a screw mechanism at its base controls 4 segments that expand like a mechanical flower when turned. The lead magistrate demonstrates. 1 turn, 2, 3. The petals spread wider, the clicking echoing off stone walls. This isn't meant to kill. That would be too merciful. Its purpose is to tear, to scar, to make the body a permanent reminder of transgression. Katerina lived as a man for 3 years, working as a clerk in Venice's merchant district. Her disguise was flawless until Margherita's husband found their love letters, filled with poetic comparisons to classical myths. To the court, these weren't expressions of love, but evidence of spiritual decay. The punishment is secret, not from shame, but because some horrors are too specific for public display. Only court officials, a physician, and a clerk are present, each with a role. The physician monitors Katerina's breathing and pulse, ensuring consciousness. The clerk records every detail, his cool scratching as the screw turns. 1 click, 2, 3. The pear is inserted, and the mechanism begins its work. Silence fills the chamber, broken only by the clicking device and water against stone. Katerina can't scream or speak. The device prevents it. Her last words, recorded by the clerk, are defiant. Love is not the crime. You think it is. To the magistrates, this proves her corruption. The screw turns, the petals expand, and the physician nods to continue, following protocol. The goal is transformation, not death. Katerina will survive, carrying scars that echo with pain for decades. When the petals close and the device is withdrawn, she's alive but changed forever. Her clothing hides external signs, but the internal damage will shape every moment. She'll live 40 years, never speaking above a whisper, coughing blood for months, flinching at sudden movements. The pear remains in Venice's collection until Napoleon's invasion, still functional, still etched with floral designs, carrying the invisible history of women like Katerina. Her story is part of a system that saw women's love, knowledge, and existence as threats. The magistrates, craftsmen, and monks who wrote the doctrines are all part of a machine that turned women's bodies into battlegrounds. But this machine needs craftsmen to bring it to life, and that takes us to a workshop where the tools of oppression are forged with chilling precision. In Augsburg, 1540, the pre-dawn air rings with hammers and the roar of a forge. Master Zimmerman's metalworking shop is no ordinary place. It's a gallery of horrors, crafting devices to control women's bodies for husbands, magistrates, and church officials across the Holy Roman Empire. His reputation for precision is unmatched, and his workshop is a testament to the intersection of craftsmanship and cruelty. Apprentices stoke the forge, journeymen prepare tools. And Zimmerman sketches by candlelight, designing a modified scold's bridle for a market woman with a strong jaw. The walls are covered with charcoal drawings, female anatomy annotated with measurements and stress points, chain lengths for different heights, joint flexibility to maximize restraint without dislocation. Pain is just another material to be shaped. Young Wilhelm, the newest apprentice, watches with fascination and unease, grinding iron filings while trying not to think about bleeding mouths. Today's commission is for Frau Hoffmann, a merchant's wife who spoke publicly about her husband's shady business practices. Her husband wants a subtle device, an iron corset with internal prongs that dig deeper when she projects her voice, forcing a choice between silence and suffering. Zimmerman calculates the angles with care, ensuring the effect is invisible but effective. His shop is a microcosm of a booming industry with orders from husbands, magistrates, and church officials. The Reformation has heightened anxieties about female behavior, and every upheaval demands new control methods. Wilhelm's fellow apprentices innovate, Klaus designs a thumb screw for women's smaller joints. Hans perfects a gag that allows breathing but prevents speech. Each device is tested, refined, and improved. By noon, the workshop produces. Wilhelm later opens his own workshop, specializing in devices that control movement. A woman can walk but not run, sit but not stand without permission. His journals reveal an obsession with perfecting restraint, turning the human body into a puzzle solved through metal and mathematics. The iron corset isn't just a tool. It's a way of life for women like Lady Catherine Pétain, who we meet in Thornfield Manor, 1560. Spring blooms fill the gardens, but Catherine feels only the cold weight of iron. On her wedding night, Lord Pétain locked an iron corset around her torso as insurance against willfulness. She laughed, thinking it a jest, but the guests applauded the locking mechanism, understanding its symbolism, marriage as ownership. 3 months later, the 18-pound corset compresses her organs with precision. Every breath is shallow. Eating is an ordeal. Sleep comes only through exhaustion. Her transgression was suggesting alternative. Layers fabric to hide the corset's outline. Other wives whisper about their own adjustment periods, normalizing suffering. The corset's cruelty lies in its 6-month duration, reshaping Catherine's. And pain, her careful movements unnoticed by guests. Lord Pétain notes her progress. Her speech is deferential. Her opinions align with his. The corset achieves psychological reconstruction, and he recommends it to friends. On the night before its removal, Catherine hosts a harvest feast, moving gracefully despite blood pooling in her shoes. When the corset is removed, her ribs halve. Reformed, organs relocated. The physician calls it successful adaptation to marital guidance. Catherine lives 20 years, bearing 4 children, but never speaks of business again. The corset's lessons remain in her bent bones. This level of control requires administration, which brings us to Cologne, 1592, where the torture chamber operates with bureaucratic efficiency. Confession procedures. Fees are posted, 2 guilders for basic interrogation, 5 for enhanced, 10 for overnight. Torture is a municipal service, with ink costs tracked alongside iron maintenance. Muller log sessions with minute-by-minute precision. 8:47, subject secured. 8:52, thumb screws applied. The optimal confession window is 45 minutes to 2 hours. Women require different documentation, reflecting their weaker nature, with forms noting Satan invocations or tear authenticity. The bureaucracy is expensive, but it pays off during witch panics, preventing chaos. Johann Schmidt, Muller's assistant, keeps a secret ledger, documenting discrepancies, paid witnesses, unexamined health assessments, excessive techniques. When he presents his evidence years later, the bureaucracy's own paperwork reveals an assembly line of atrocity. This assembly line reaches its peak in Norwich, 1563, where the market square sound is changing. Women's voices once dominated, hawking fish, bread, and textiles, but now men's tones prevail. The scold's bridle is a weapon of economic warfare, silencing female merchants to clear the way for men. Agnes Brewster, an alewife, watches another competitor fitted with iron. The Male Brewers Guild complains her ale is too popular, her price is too low. Her custom bridle has extended tongue spikes, reinforced hinges, and a bell to announce her shame. Guild records show bridling rates soar as women gain market share, their stalls taken over by men. Before bridling, women controlled 60% of Norwich's ale trade. Within 2 years, men control 70%. Guilds coordinate campaigns, hiring witnesses to testify about unseemly behavior. Success is reframed as unwomanly ambition, shouting as disturbing the peace. Agnes resists with hand signals, her assistants relaying messages. Other women use written signs, risking literacy accusations. They form silent networks, every transaction a victory. Sarah Carpenter, the last female merchant, survives by keeping her workshop small, but her quality draws customers, and her bridling marks the end of an era. Norwich's marketplace becomes male, women moving like ghosts through their former domain. The ultimate expression of this system is Bamberg's Malefiz's House, 1627, a witch prison operating like a factory. Prinzbischof Johann Georg. Two Fuchs von Dornheim built it for efficiency, with examination rooms, holding cells, and pulley systems designed by mining experts. Guards rouse prisoners at dawn, the scheduling board listing. 17 names. Torturers check devices, oiled overnight. The Prince Bishop reviews productivity reports, demanding quotas. The morning shift moves suspects through stations, questioning. Instrument display, light persuasion. Most confess by Station 3, the assembly line calibrated to break resistance without death. Children watch their mothers, screams breaking small spirits. Viewing galleries maximize psychological impact. Pre-printed confession forms with checkboxes, speed documentation, each confession generating new accusations. Torturers rotate to prevent fatigue. Lunch breaks staggered, screams providing dining music. The facility pays for itself through property confiscation, profits reinvested in upgrades. Anna Schiller, a torturer's daughter, keeps a diary of numbers. 17 women on Monday, 15 on Tuesday. Her journals document efficiency, corruption, and industrial murder. When Swedish forces take Bamberg, her records condemn the system, proving cruelty's profitability. Back in Edinburgh, Margaret's 3 months in the Scold's Bridle are ending. The crowd gathers for the removal, the straps having worn grooves into her skull. The iron bit reshaping her palate. The locksmith works carefully, too fast, and her jaw might break. The magistrate reads the charges, disturbing the peace in church. As the key turns, blood runs fresh. Margaret waves away water and speaks, her voice ruined but clear. I said, young woman, not virgin. Mary was a young woman. The crowd gasps. 3 months of torture for a translator's correction. The priest she corrected flushes, her words threatening centuries of doctrine. If Mary was a young woman, not a virgin, the basis for female purity laws crumbles. Margaret's heresy was accuracy, her bloody mouth speaking truth that threatened power. The crowd can't unsee her scars or unhear her words. Her daughter, Elizabeth, understands the lesson. Speak truth, bleed iron. But she's also learned resistance, communicating through touch and love. Margaret lives 20 years, teaching Elizabeth Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, raising women who know. Translations lie. The bridle failed to silence her spirit, proving truth survives torture. Museums display these devices, often without Margaret's story. Gift shops sell miniature bridles. Tour guides call it historical barbarism. Visitors snap selfies, turning pain into entertainment. But the legacy persists. Women who speak truth face professional destruction, social media, harassment, economic violence. The materials have shifted from iron to silicon, but the intent remains. Margaret, Anna, Katerina, Catherine, their scars testify to survival, their voices proving no. Device can silence the human spirit. Thanks for joining WTF History. If this story shocked you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. What's the most horrifying historical fact you've come across? Let's keep uncovering the past's darkest corners together.